I wandered out on the sea, searching for something that really found me. I didn't know it, but it drew me to it. Soon I was full of its passion in me. I'm Italo Labignan. 40 years I've fished the world and have learned it's not just about catching the fish, the size of the fish, or the numbers. It's about appreciating every sunrise and sunset, the smell of the sea, savoring the culture and the fish with friends. Here's the catch. It's the total experience. Presented by Bear Reels, versatile, precision, handcrafted hybrid center pins. Seabreeze boats, tame the oceans. Raymarine Electronics. Raymarine, simply superior. Some people think that Florida is always hot and sunny. Well, let me tell you, this morning it's overcast, the temps are just above freezing, and I have a winter coat on. It's been cold and windy the last few days, and this is the first day the winds are supposed to be lower, but I have my doubts. It's gloomy, and I'm heading down one of the many creeks that leads to the intercoastal waterway. I'm using the sonar to navigate and stay in the deeper channel and avoid touching bottom on the many oyster bars. Low light makes it difficult to visually spot the deeper channel. The engine is trimmed up, and I'm putt-putting slowly, not to throw a wake and not to mess with the bottom. I look in between the keys, and the water is flat as glass. But I have this eerie feeling that things are going to change once the sun rises. We get out into the intercoastal waterway and things look calm and quiet. No boat traffic, this is early in the morning, and I have a feeling anglers and boaters are waiting for the weather to warm up before heading out. In the distance, I can see oyster bars that are out of the water just off the channel marker. That means low tide, and it's a good idea for me to stick to the channel. Some of the diving birds are taking advantage of the low tide and low light, getting their breakfast in early. We get on plane just as the sun starts to break through the clouds, and I can already see a chop starting to form. We have a lovely chilly morning here in Florida. It still amazes me that even in Southwest Florida, you have to sometimes have a coat and gloves and stuff on. But it's okay. The waves aren't big today. We've got swells that are maybe 2-3 feet in size. And this was my second cast. So what I'm doing today, I'm out here in about 40 feet of water, and my goal is to get a bunch of fish using just lures. So I'm starting off with a gotcha, and this is my first fish, second cast. It's a little jack. A lot of these guys are caught by fishermen off the beach. I'm surprised he's not grunting. I'm gonna just hold him, see if I release his gills. So this is actually the size that you get, when you're shore fishing, maybe with a popper and shrimp, or you're casting lures off the beach or in the intercoastal. They'll hit almost anything. And a lot of people keep them for eating, especially the smaller ones. When the Jack Crevalle get bigger, a lot of times they have toxins. There we go, we got one grunt out of him. I'm just gonna pop him back in the water. He says, let me go. But this is interesting, I gotta show you this lure, because I was like a kid. I went to a craft shop, and I was getting fish the other day when I came out here with my wife practicing using the 1 ounce gotcha. This is a gotcha lure, very common down here in Florida and in different parts of the US. Good casting lure, but they didn't have any silver ones. So I bought ones that had an orange head, white body, and this is glitter and then nail polish on top of it. So, I don't know how long it'll last, but it definitely looks fishy, scaly. And that's good that it produced the fish right off the bat. You tell I'm trying to keep the pressure on the fish. The one thing when you're casting these lures like the gotchas, you never know when you're going to get a hit. So a lot of times they get you by surprise. Come on up. Good fighter. Man, that wind picked up. We've only been fishing for about half an hour. We wanted to start early today, and it was calm. And now, it's just starting to
get windier, so we've got a mixture of swells and waves. This guy's a bit bigger. Good fighters. Just got a feeling I'm going to be doing a lot of casting and swim jigging, those jigs. I put a wire leader on there. I think it's 44 pound, just in case the mackerel move in. Be nice to look a nice king or two, but I'll take these jacks all day long. I'll tell you what, it's a workout. I think he's ready. At least he's only hooked on the back hook, which is good. Come on, are you gonna calm down? Maybe I can lift him in. I've got a 60-pound fluorocarbon leader, which is ideal. So you see the leader here is only from here to the hooks. I'm gonna say it's about 2 feet. I better let him go down on the floor. Yeah, I'm guessing he's about 6-7 pounds. There, gotcha. Okay. Nice jack. You know, one of their cousins, the giant Crevalle, can get up to like 100 pounds. So these guys are small. I think the biggest I've caught in Jack Crevalle has probably been about maybe 15 pounds. I'll tell you what, they've got a ton of energy. So one thing that I do, even with a jack that size, is always check the hooks. And these actually are pretty strong hooks. A lot of times I get leery if I see gold hooks because I think they're soft, but these on the gotchas are actually pretty good. There. It's getting colder.
I remember fishing out of the sea breeze with my friend Roland Lavoie in similar condition, and all of the fish I hooked were Spanish mackerel.
See what this is, or a king. It's a good eating size fish. No,
so, live bait?
No, this guy is probably going to be a cooler fish.
Okay.
Have you had Spanish mackerel before, Roland?
I don't remember. Actually, yes.
Because
it's beautiful.
I like to prepare them on the grill.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So let's see here if I can just grab him by the tail, if I can get him closer. Good eater. You know, I love the way they slam it when you get them on. You can see
so
that.
we have a second one.
Oh, good. Did you land that one while I was talking?
Yeah.
You didn't even say anything.
Well, I said I got one.
That's why you were talking about the pliers. Okay, now I need the pliers. We must have gone through a school of them. Good. This, have you been on TV shows before? It's kind of hard work, eh?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's a never-ending job.
You got to be mic'd up. You got to do this. You got to do that. So these are on the small side for Spanish, but you know what? They're probably better eating. You can get them up to 7-8 pounds.
Okay.
We get really thick ones. That's perfect. So we're going to keep a few.
Beautiful.
And if we get a king or two, we might keep a king. Just to feed everybody. Okay, I'm going to put them in the cooler.
I released that bigger jack and we're still on lots of bait fish that are tight to the bottom. Just in case I hook a bigger fish, I decide to change the size of my front treble hook on the gotcha. The rollers are making it interesting. The first thing I do is use my cutters and my pliers to break off the existing hook. Sounds easy? No way, Jose. That is one strong hook. After wrestling with that treble on the sliding wire, I give up. I snap off the hook below the eye. That will have to do. Next, I use my pliers to slide the new hook that's already rigged with a split ring, and now I'm ready for action. I start the motor and head back up to do my drift again.
Sometimes you just don't feel like talking. Just breathe. Oh, hey, there's a nice sea breeze. I can see how they figured out the name for the other boat that I use, the 23-footer. This is the Pro Sports. Oh, tell you what, these jacks have a lot of energy, especially on light gear. So every once in a while I shift my rod, but in my belly, on my arm, you know, that's one advantage having a fighting grip like this. And you can actually put it, make it an extension of your arm. Man, these things are fun. I want to make sure he's tired out before I try to lift him up. Big head shakes. I don't want to lose any lures. There. if I can carefully do that. Here, switch hands. I'll tell you what, this fish isn't hooked deep, but he's hooked in some pretty tough membrane. You know, they're schooling fish, so when you get into them, as long as you can turn them on to become active, you know, you can get a whole bunch. They're pretty fast, they have a wide body. They're good to eat. You know, I've had ceviche from Mexico all the way to the Caribbean, but only with the smaller fish. I don't really keep the bigger fish. There. I find the smaller ones are better eating. Yeah, so here, look, I was gonna explain to you, this is the new hook I put on, and look, it looks like jewelry. There's the shaft and the bend of the old hook, and I could not cut it. I tried my wire cutters, I should have brought my bolt cutters. And I'm looking at the back here. This hook looks okay. The one is bent in, so I'm hoping it's not gonna break when I bend it out. I don't know if you know what I mean by bend in. See, this one is almost turned into like a circle hook. These are straight. So sometimes the hooks are brittle. Please don't break, or I'm gonna have to mess around again. Trying to go really slow, just to open it up a little bit. Because you know, when you're casting for hours, trying to get a fish to hit, that's opened up a little bit. I'm not gonna push my luck. You wanna make sure that all your terminal stuff is ready. You can see the wire leader I've got on here. I'm just straightening it with my nail a little bit. It's only about, I'm gonna say 4 to 5 inches long. And I've got a swivel to connect it to my 60-pound, and then like a perfect snell knot at the top to connect it. So this is my rig. I try to use a short leader because I think a lot of times, especially the kings, they have such good eyesight, they can actually spot the leader, and sometimes they shy away from it. So I try to use 44 is the lightest I could find, 44 pound.
Closed captioning brought to you by Leguano, natural barefoot technology for every adventure.
You know, when the bait fish are around, when you're fishing some of these reefs, anything could be swimming. You could get tuna, barracuda, amberjacks, everything. Come on out, there. Look at how pretty those spots are. I wonder if he's gonna bleed, because they're notorious when you get him up to bleed all over the boat. See if I can, he's got lots of energy. So even though they've got, you know, nice big mouths, you can see even from the head shaking, I'll show you in a minute here, that he actually tore. The mouths are not that strong. See what I mean here? So on this side, you can see just from it shaking how it tore. Well, gotta be careful. Get the hook away from my hand. How it tore his mouth apart. So if you get into a bigger one, especially the kings, the hooks can actually tear out. So they don't have a really tough mouth. Good mouth for hooking, but look, aren't those gorgeous colors? These guys are so plentiful, and they're great eating. This is a good size. So I didn't bring the cooler today, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get my live well going, and I'm gonna take a couple home. If I can get another 1 or 2, that'll be perfect. There. You know what? I don't give up. So I'm out here, even though it's not the nicest conditions, and I'm willing to put in a few hours, see what I can get. You know, it's better than being at home. I've got lots of chores to do at home, but you know what? This beats it. It's a lot better.
The sonar continues to show lots of fish off the bottom, so I keep making the same drift over my old tracks and keep working the gotcha, expecting a hit anytime.
Come on, fish. Yahoo! Okay, since the last fish, I've made about 500 casts. Oh, got off. Oh man, okay, another 500 casts. Oh, this is such hard work, but I love it.
It was not an easy fish. I landed a few, lost a few, and I was cold all day. Time to get in and enjoy my fresh catch. The Spanish mackerel will be an ideal meal for one. I start by making a cut just behind the head down to the vertebrae. Next, I make a cut along the back using the tip of the knife just deep enough to go along the spine down to the tail. I use my left thumb to lift the fillet to enable my knife to go deeper and deeper. I proceed to pass the knife just past the rib cage, right through from the back to the anal fin. From there, I run the knife right back to the tail. I continue to separate the fillet over the rib cage down to the belly. I flip the mackerel over and use the same process on the other side, careful to make a cut behind the head and work the knife tip down along the back to the tail using my left hand to add a little pressure to keep the fish from sliding. I carefully work the knife deeper along the spine, over the rib cage and down to the belly. The fillets are carefully washed down with fresh water. I proceed to remove any excess fat from the belly and the small bones along the ladder line. I always check to ensure I remove all the bones. The fillets are rinsed the final time and placed on a platter, ready to prepare for grilling. Spanish mackerel have a wonderful white, flaky flesh with no scales on the skin. Ideal for grilling, especially when they are caught fresh. I start my recipe by placing a few slices of butter on my grill mat. Next, I add my favorite seasoning of roasted garlic, roasted pepper, salt and pepper. I go easy on the seasoning because I don't want to overpower the light, tasty meat. As I sprinkle the seasonings, I can see the fillets take on a rich red color. They are ready to be placed on the grill mat and get cooking. I place the grill mat on the preheated grill and move the butter around with the fork as it melts and evenly covers the grill mat. I place the fillets on with the wide end in. I use the fork to slide the melted butter towards the fillets and allow them to cook for 10 minutes between 200 and 250 Fahrenheit. I check the fillets to make sure they're cooking slowly, and I can see the outer edges turn white as they cook. I like to use the tip of the fork to check the thickest part of the fillet since it will take a little longer to cook through. I continue to use the fork to move the butter and juices to the fillet and allow them to cook for another 10 minutes. The temperature rose to 300 and it's time for the final check. This time I use the spatula to press down on the thickest part of the fillet. The flesh side of the fillet feels firm and I flip the fillets over to give the flesh side a nice golden color. They are now cooked to perfection and it's time to slide them on the platter and to enjoy them. Yes, you know, this is a mackerel for a person. You know, that fish wasn't that big. It didn't fight as hard as the jacks, but look at, these are the boneless fillets, and what I've done, I've left the skin on. Here, I'll lift the peduncle up. You can see the skin. The reason I have the skin on, if you try to fillet a Spanish mackerel, the skin is like paper thin. That's good. And really, there's no scales. So you don't really need to take the skin off, and when I eat it, I actually use my fork and I take the whole chunk off and eat it. So what I've done, I filleted it, removed the lateral line, which is also has the mud, people call it the mud line. It's actually an organ, so it has a little bit stronger flavor. That's why it looks darker, you know, that dark strip. And some fish, like the jacks, if you were to keep a jack, their mud line is quite wide. So this one was very thin, just literally the lateral line, but on a Jack Crevalle, the mud line can extend like ½ an inch on either side. And it's a good idea to actually shave that off with your fillet knife if you're going to do, you know, the fish the same way or whatever way you're going to have it, because it does have a stronger flavor. So this one was so easy to do. You just fillet both sides, take that lateral line bones out, rinse it, and you're ready to eat. So this is the way things came down today before I start munching on this. We started out early this morning. It wasn't that bad. It was about 9-10 miles an hour. So I didn't blast out with my 115. I probably went about 4,500 RPMs because I didn't want it to be too lumpy. We ran about 5 or 6 miles, got to the spot. I think on my second cast, I got the first fish. And then there was a little bit of a lull, but I started getting the jacks. And then I got the mackerel. And it got so windy. We didn't expect it. I think the winds were gusting anywhere from 16 to 20 miles an hour. So we went into 2 or 3 foot waves, or even higher. Every once in a while, you get a rogue wave. So didn't use the anchor, the electric trolling motor, because it was too windy and the waves were too high. So I would have to reposition the boat every time, start casting. The drift would be done over the actual reef in about probably 5 minutes. So I'd start the motor again, go back up, do the same drift. And because I saved the track on the Raymarine, I could see the way the wind was blowing. And something very interesting today,
We started off with like a straight line drift with the wind, and then second drift, the wind had already shifted. So I actually crossed. I made a very thin X over the line. So I couldn't fish the first spot. It was almost impossible to go right over it. And I found that throughout the day, that wind kept shifting to the point that it literally blew offshore from west to east, blowing us towards the shoreline. So it wasn't the ideal conditions. I couldn't stand at the front on the deck because it was a little bit hairy up there. But it's so exciting to get those fish to hit a gotcha lure. I probably lost 3 or 4 fish, but it's still fun. So here we go. This is the taste test. So where should I start? I'm gonna start right here. This is the loin. So this is the back of each fillet. The loin is some of the nicest meat. And for those of you that are worried about bones, either pick from where the tail is back, because there's no rib cage there. So this is gonna be boneless, or this upper part, the upper half of the body, because the vertebrae is below them. Okay, so this is the first taste. Let's see. I'm telling you, this is Spanish mackerel. It was maybe 18 inches, 17 inches long. Not a big fish. Perfect eating size. They have to be 12 inches to keep. They're a little bit fattier than like a king mackerel or Cero mackerel, some of the other mackerel family. But I'm just going to show you the meat. Look at, you can see how white that meat is. It's very flaky and moist because I let it cook in its own juices, and I put 4 slices of butter on the grill mat. The best way to have them is to have them fresh like this, I'm telling you. So one fish is definitely a meal for one person. And I'm gonna have something a little bit later. Barb's making a nice salad for me, kale and some other stuff. You know, if you fish, you get hungry, and if you're hungry, you should eat well. Good food.
One day I wandered out on the sea, searching for something that really found me. I didn't know it, but it drew me to it. Soon I was full of its passion in me. I'm Italo Labignan. 40 years I've fished the world and have learned it's not just about catching the fish, the size of the fish, or the numbers. It's about appreciating every sunrise and sunset, the smell of the sea, savoring the culture and the fish with friends. Here's the catch. It's the total experience. Presented by Bear Reels, versatile, precision, handcrafted hybrid center pins. Seabreeze Boats, tame the oceans. Raymarine Electronics. Raymarine, simply superior.